طيب. الحمد لله وحده الصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اقتفى أثره واستنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. فإن شاء الله عندنا باب ما جاء في جامع الوقت. ما جاء في جامع الوقت. ومالك رحمه الله تعالى, he brings this chapter to talk about several things that deal with the time, right? So it's a جامع في الوقت, جامع الوقت كما جاء في رواية يحيى جامع الوقت, باب جامع الوقت. Just a throw all, a catch all to talk about various things that he doesn't put in any specific chapter. وهكذا يفعل بعض العلماء. Like this some scholars do when there's a whole bunch of topics they want to talk about without making each one their own chapter. They just put them all in one chapter. And from the people that we saw do this was who? Anybody know somebody who did this? From the Mutaakhirin, Ibn Hajar in Bulugh al-Maram, right? He'll have a Kitab al-Jami', right? Or something just at the end to put it all together. And so in this chapter, Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, he's going to talk about some things that deal with missing the salah. So far, this book, this kitab in his book is Kitab Waqt, or Kitab Wuqut as-Salah. So everything is going to be dealing about the time. And we talked about the time in general and the time of Jumu'ah, and about the one who misses a rak'ah, or who makes a rak'ah, or catches a rak'ah. And we talked about the time of Fajr, right? Duluk al-Shams, or should I say Dhuhr, Duluk al-Shams ila ghasaq al-Layl. And now this is a jami' in which he's going to talk about if the last chapter was about the one who caught the salah, then this one is going to be about the sin of the one who misses the salah. Likewise, he's going to talk about the best time and what time for every salat is the best. And he's going to talk about the individual who misses the salat. What should he do in certain circumstances that he might find himself in? And so all of this chapter is going to be connected, even though it's a jami', it's going to be connected to the individual who missed the salat in some way, right? What is missing the salat? When is the salat missed? What's the best time that a person could have caught the salat versus the best time that a person could have missed? And so like this, you're able to keep the chapters synchronized in your head. If the chapter before last was Man adraka rak'ah, and then he interjected into that the tafsir of Duluk al-Shams, so you could know what is the time. Now he's talking about a comprehensive chapter, and that comprehensive chapter is mostly dealing about the one who misses the salat. What is missing the salat? When is the salat missed? What to do if you miss a salat? What are the different ways that a person might miss the salat? All of that is inside of this chapter. هذا باب ما جاء في جامع الوقت. باب ما جاء في جامع الوقت. And he begins with the hadith of Ibn Umar. He said, كما قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك النافع. طيب, من نافع? Who is نافع? مولى عبد الله ibn Umar. When did he die? This is the reason why we repeat it, because we want to get it to stick in. And we just took Nafi' last week. Nafi', we just took him last week in the hadith of Man, and the athar of Duluk al-Shams, Mayluha. We said Nafi', he died 116 to 120, somewhere in that range. 116 to 120, thiqatun imam, min al-mukathirin, from the teachers of Imam Malik, who he was abundant on narrating upon them. We said his origins were either from northern Africa or from Iraq or from Khurasan, right? Somewhere, they disagree. but he was Nafi', the freed slave of Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab. And Nafi' and Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab. Who is Abdullah ibn Umar al-Khattab? Sahabi. Tell me about him. Al-Nasik. Hey, that's his kunya, the one who was, his laqab. Al-Nasik.
People would take more from him than Ibn Abbas.
Because of that worship now. What group was he part of? He was part of a group. What group was he part of? What was his name? What was his name? Abdullah. So what group was he part of?
The four.
The four Abdullahs. Al-Abadila. Who are the Abadila? لا عبد الله بن مسعود هناك أي عبد الله بن عباس عبد الله بن عمر عبد الله بن الزبير no Abdullah bin Mas'ud هناك Abdullah bin Mas'ud is in his own category. When they say Abdullah, they're talking about who? Ibn Mas'ud, because he was older. Abdullah bin Mas'ud قيل السادس في الإسلام, the sixth person in Islam, it's been said. So he's above them. But these four Abdullahs were the children of the Sahaba. Abdullah bin Umar, Abdullah bin Abbas, Abdullah ibn Zubair, and there's one more. Probably the oldest of them. The only one who narrated more hadith than Abu Hurairah. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. The one who narrated more hadith than Abu Hurairah. إلا أن الناس فقدوا أحاديثه. طيب. When did Ibn Umar die? 74 after the Hijrah. No, 73, 74 after the Hijrah. وقد قال عنه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Right? نعم رجل Ibn Umar. How blessed of a man is Ibn Umar. Right? We said he was the uncle of the believers, just like Muawiyah, because his sister Hafsa was our mother. And him and Hafsa were blood brother and sister from both parents. فهذا هو الإسناد. الإسناد سهل. هذا we said about this isnad is known as what? Silsilatul Dhahab. Al-Bukhari said that this is the most authentic isnad. And we now have a hadith with this isnad. Right? I think this is the first hadith we've gotten with this isnad in the book. Sah wala la? Did we get another hadith with this isnad? We had some athar, but this is our first hadith with this isnad. So now you have a hadith that's golden. You have a hadith with you that's a golden hadith. Who narrated it? Abu Mus'ab and Malik. قال حدثنا مالك and Nafi' and Abdullah ibn Umar ibn al-Khattab to the end of the hadith.
How about this hadith? Abu Hurairah and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
That's Abu Hurairah. That's not Ibn Umar. We say Ibn Umar is the one that's the Silsilatul Dhahab. Now there's
No, I mean the hadith.
the hadith, right? Yeah, the second hadith. What second hadith? In this chapter?
That's the chapter. Like, we have that hadith too.
Which one?
من أدرك ركعة من الصلاة.
Okay, yeah. The hadith of Abi Hurairah, من أدرك ركعة من الصبح قبل أن تطلع الشمس فقد أدرك الصبح. But that's not Nafi' and Abdullah ibn Umar. That's Zayd ibn Aslam and Ata ibn Yasar وعن بصر ibn Sa'id وعن الأعرج يحدثونه. So that's a different chain. But when we're talking about this particular chain that's in front of us, we had other narrations like Kitabati, because he skipped Ibn Umar and Kitabati Umar ila Abi Musa al-Ash'ari. So that's not Silsilatul Dhahab. But we had the statement of Nafi and Abdullah ibn Umar fi Duluk al-Shams mayluha. Do we have anything else on Ibn Umar besides that? Jum'ah? I don't see anything in Jum'ah in my head. Anything in Jum'ah? No, we didn't have anything in Jum'ah no, did we? From Ibn Umar in Kitab al-Jum'ah? We have the hadith of Umar فَنَقِيلُ قَائِلَةِ الضَّحَى, and then what's after that? المزني أنا بن أبي صليب أي مرتين. And then what's the last one in that? Because there's 4 in that chapter, right?
No, two.
It's only three?
Yeah, that was the.
No, it's four. It's Uthman.
قال
يصلي
مالك يعني.
oh, it's the statement of Malik.
There's
It's
three
three?
after.
Right. No. So yeah, so this is the first hadith that we have that we can say it's from the silsila to dhahab, right? From that golden chain. In this hadith, it's been narrated by other individuals as well. And those other individuals, for example, Salim az-Zuhri narrates on Salim, who narrates on Ibn Umar, his father. Imam Ahmed said that that is the best chain. Zuhri and Salim and Abdullah, right? And so Imam Ahmed said that's the best chain. So this hadith we have right here, الذي تفوته صلاة العصر كأنما وتر أهله وماله. This is from the best hadith you can get. And when they talk about a hadith that has the best chain, the decision or the final statement is that you can't say for any one hadith or any one chain, should I say, that it's the most authentic, because there's too many variables, right? That means that the person in every tabaqa would have to be the best person in that tabaqa, having the best person narrate on them in that tabaqa, and that's too hard to do, right? So who's better, Abu Bakr or Abu Hurairah? So why isn't Abu Bakr's hadith the most authentic? You see what I'm saying? And who's better in Ibn Umar, Salim or Nafi'? You see what I'm saying? You get in an argument now. And that's just on Ibn Umar. Why is Ibn Umar even there? Who's better, Ibn Umar or Umar? You see what I'm saying? And so it's too hard to say that one isnad in particular is the most authentic. And so for that reason, the statement that is accepted by the scholars is the most authentic isnad to this individual. So the most authentic isnad of Ibn Umar is Nafi' and Abdullah, right? Or Malik and Nafi' and Abdullah, or Zuhri and Salim and Abdullah, right? That's the most authentic isnad of Ibn Umar. Now, this narration is also narrated by an individual known as Nawfal ibn Muawiyah al-Da'ili from the Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Nawfal ibn Muawiyah. And we're going to talk about that in a second. And there's other narrations that are attributed to Abu Darda, things like that. But these two narrations are the ones we need to pay attention to. The narration of Ibn Umar, which is this: الذي تفوته صلاة العصر. هكذا رواية Ibn Umar. Like this, everybody who narrates it on Ibn Umar narrates it. Right? إن الذي تفوته صلاة العصر الذي تفوته صلاة العصر من فاتته صلاة العصر. Right? But all of them mention what? Salat al-Asr. As far as the riwayah of Nawfal ibn Muawiyah, then the majority of his riwayat, they mention man fatahu salat or man fatathu as-salat. So we see the difference. One of them specifies Salat al-Asr. One of them is general for every salat. Are they the same hadith? Are they different hadith? And which one is more accurate? Is the hadith specifically talking about Salat al-Asr, and so it's something that is unique about it? Or is the hadith something that is general for every salat? And this is something that they begin to disagree about. This is the first point of difference in this hadith. الَّذِي تَفُوتُهُ salat. What salat are we talking about? So, as we mentioned, everybody who narrates it on Ibn Umar, they narrated Salat al-Asr. So Ibn Umar said Salat al-Asr. But is that his statement or the statement of the Prophet ﷺ? And a person might, by default, just automatically say what? What's the hadith say? No, before that. Before that? Qala Rasulullah. So by default, your automatic suggestion is what? The Prophet said it. Qala Rasulullah alladhi tafutuhu salat al-asr. Whose statement is that? Prophet's statement. But this leads us to a thing that they call al-idraj. when somebody adds a statement to a hadith, you have to know, is that statement from the hadith or has it been added to the hadith? So somebody might be saying a hadith and they say a statement, and that statement isn't part of the hadith, but they said it to clarify. We do this all the time when we're talking. We might be reading a book and we'll give a quick explanation of a word without saying that we said it, and the person who hears us thinks that it's what? The statement of the author. That's why the Salaf, when they would talk, when they would write, right, they didn't have quotation marks. So they would be careful to say things like, in the isnad, for example, ya'ni. When we say ya'ni in the isnad, what are we saying?
Meaning.
I am adding this information. You see what I'm saying? Right. When you see an isnad and it says ya'ni ibn Umar, right? That's me telling you who this Abdullah is. Or you say wahuwa, right? That's from one of the narrators giving the information to clarify that this information isn't part of the isnad. It's me adding this. Likewise, when they would write, when they would finish somebody's quote, they would say a statement like something, intaha kalamuhu. He's done talking. So you could know that the quote is over, and now I'm getting back to what I'm saying. Or like we see, like we talked about Ibn Hajar in Tahdhib al-Kamal, or Tahdhib al-Tahdhib. He says, qultu, I say. You got to be careful when you're dealing with narrations and transmissions to kind of distinguish your information from the information you're transmitting, because if not, a generation or two down the line, it can become confusing. And that confusion is the science of al-idraj, knowing when something has been added into the hadith that isn't from it. Now, this hadith, Ibn Umar says that the Prophet qala Nabi, and what does it say? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من الذي تفوته صلاة العصر فكأنما وتر أهله وماله. So this narration makes it seem that it's obviously the statement of the Prophet. But then we have the hadith of Nawfal, and he narrates it similar without mentioning Asr. And so, do we say that Nawfal narrated it reduced, or do we say that Ibn Umar narrated it with addition from himself, or do we say that they're two different hadith to begin with? This requires you to start doing your research. You understand the difference? Mm-hmm. We could say Nawfal narrated it summarized. He just left a word out. Or you can say, no, Ibn Umar narrated it and added a word from himself. Or you could say they're two different events in the first place. When we look at the different versions of this narration, we find one reported by Ibn Ishaq that says that the two of them were together when this hadith happened, when they're talking, when they're narrating this hadith. Al-Ghafiqi, he says that I was with Nawfal ibn Muawiyah and Ibn Umar while I was sitting with them when they were in the market of Medina. And Nawfal narrated the hadith, Man fatatu salat, فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلُهُ وَمَالُهُ. Then it's like he's lost his family and his wealth. And Ibn Umar, he said, it's Salat al-Asr. So now what do you think? All right? It could be that it's from Ibn Umar explaining that hadith. And another narration, similar, that Zuhri asked the narrator on Nawfal, Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman ibn al-Harith ibn Hisham, he says, what salat are they talking about? And Abu Bakr ibn Abdul Rahman, he says, it's Salat al-Asr. I heard Ibn Umar saying, الذي تفوته صلاة العصر فكأنما وتر ماله وأهله. And so here once again, it seems that it's something from Ibn Umar, maybe, right? And so now we have a question. We know we can narrate by meaning. Did the Sahaba used to do this? Did the Sahaba used to narrate by meaning?
I think so.
Okay. If you say the Sahaba narrated by meaning, is it possible that when they say something, it's not the hadith? Let me explain what I mean. The hadith of Ibn Umar, when he kneeled his camel down and urinated behind it, right? And the tabi'i asked him, weren't we forbidden from this? And Ibn Umar said that was in the open spaces. The prohibition of the Prophet about doing this was related to the open spaces, right? ذَلِكَ فِي الْفَضَاء. Was that the statement of the Prophet or not? You understand the question? When he made this statement, he's saying that the tabi'i is asking, weren't we forbidden from this? And Ibn Umar is telling that the prohibition of the Prophet ﷺ was about the open spaces. Is that a hadith of the Prophet, or is that Ibn Umar's understanding of the hadith of the Prophet?
Is there a hadith that says specifically?
So what do? We start looking at, well, where is there a hadith that says specifically? And we don't find one. But we find that Ibn Umar once ascended to the roof of the house of Hafsa, and he found the Prophet ﷺ sitting on some blocks with his back towards the Qibla facing Bayt al-Maqdis. So that's the action of the Prophet. But Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, his statement is maybe it's his understanding of what the Prophet said. But it's not that the Prophet ﷺ actually said that is in the open spaces. You see what I'm saying? Another example. Ibn Abbas. He said to Qurayb, when Qurayb came back from Ash-Sham in the beginning of Ramadan, Muawiyah and the people of Sham started Ramadan the night of Jumu'ah, right? While the people in Medina, they didn't see it until the 30th night, or until the night of As-Sabt. So when Qurayb came back and told Ibn Abbas that that Muawiyah and the people of Sham, the Khalifa, had started a day earlier than the people of Medina, Ibn Abbas said, as far as us, we're not going to break our fast until we see it or complete 30 days. Which means that it could be longer than the people in Sham. Everybody with me? Qurayb said to Ibn Abbas, isn't it enough the statement of Muawiyah? Right? Muawiyah is the Khalifa. Shouldn't you just follow the ruler in this regard? Ibn Abbas, he says, like this, the Prophet commanded us. هَكَذَا أَمَرَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. What did the Prophet ﷺ command them?
To fast when to begin fast when you see it. And
Some people say the command is every location has its own sighting. Don't follow every people, one group. Just because they saw it in Sham doesn't mean you see it in Medina. And that's how they use this hadith as a proof to say that every location has its own sighting, because Ibn Abbas says what? Like this, the Prophet commanded us.
Was he going for that?
Well, that's the question. Like this, the Prophet commanded us. Other people say, no, the statement of Ibn Abbas, that was his interpretation of the Prophet's command, fast when you see it, break your fast when you see it. But does that mean that every location should have its own sighting? No, had nothing to do with that. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ was not about if they fast in Sham and you don't see it in Medina, then you don't fast in Medina. And so there's no proof for how Ibn Abbas used it. You see what I'm saying? But he said, like this, the Prophet commanded us. So it's his command, him saying the sunnah is what I'm telling you to do because the Prophet told us to do what I'm telling you to do? Or is the command that he's referring to a different hadith, and what he is referring to is just his understanding of the hadith? You see how that makes a difference?
Did that other hadith where not every city is...
The hadith of Qurayb, okay.
Was it an order?
What do you mean? Well, The Prophet said, fast when you see it,
That-
break
the
your
other one.
fast when you see it.
The other one.
That's a command. The author of Ibn Abbas, when he's saying to Qurayb, like this the Prophet commanded us. What did the Prophet command them? Did the Prophet command them to all have their own sighting?
Was that a command?
That's the question.
Oh.
All Ibn Abbas said was, like this the Prophet commanded us. He said it after a story. The story was Qurayb went to Sham. They fasted on Jum'ah. When he got back to Medina, the people in Medina fasted on Sept. Right? It's 18 days difference on foot from Sham to Medina. Ibn Abbas asked him, when did you guys start fasting in Sham? He said, we started fasting on Jum'ah. Ibn Abbas said, as far as us, we didn't fast until Sept. So we're not going to break our fast until we see it or until we complete 30 days. If they complete 30 days, the people in Sham, how many days will it have been for them?
31.
31. Can't be 31. So Ibn Abbas is saying, we don't care about what the people in Sham did. Our 30-day count starts from a sept. Qurayb says, isn't the sighting of Muawiyah good enough? Why don't you all just adjust your calendar to match the calendar of Muawiyah? Ibn Abbas said, like this the Prophet commanded us. Is his statement, like this the Prophet commanded us, all of that detail? Don't follow another location sighting. Every location has their own sighting. And this is how a lot of scholars use that hadith. Or is the like this the Prophet commanded us actually the hadith, fast when you see it, break your fast when you see it, and everything that Ibn Abbas is talking about is his understanding of the hadith. That makes a difference. Because if you say it's the hadith, what Ibn Abbas is talking about, then that's a clear-cut proof. But if you say it's Ibn Abbas's opinion of the hadith, then we can say he's mistaken about this. You see what I'm saying? And therefore, every location should deal with one sighting. If it's seen in Sham, you should follow Sham. You see what I'm saying? But Ibn Abbas says like this, we were commanded. So you got to know, what was the command? One more example to make it clear. These are things that people start arguing about when it comes time to applying the hadith that deals with this concept of idraj and not telling us exactly what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but just telling us the answer or the ruling. When Abdullah ibn Zubair on the Eid prayed Jumu'ah and the Eid together. And so he prayed earlier in the day. And then he didn't come back out until Asr, insinuating that he didn't pray anything until Asr. And the people didn't know what to do. And the people who were educated didn't do anything. And the people who didn't know better prayed Dhuhr. This is the statement of Ata. When Ibn Abbas came back to back to Mecca after that, they asked Ibn Abbas about it, and he said he did the sunnah. Right? What does he mean he did the sunnah? Does he mean he did the sunnah by not praying anything until Asr? Or does he mean he did the sunnah by not coming back out of his house until Asr? Or does he mean he did the sunnah by not forcing people to pray Jumu'ah on that day? Which one was the sunnah? So this statement of Ibn Abbas, we don't really know what the sunnah he's referring to is, because he didn't clearly say he did the sunnah. He's just said he did the sunnah. It could be applying to any one of these type of situations, right? And so similarly, this hadith that's in front of us, even though the difference here is not that big of a difference, is the statement Salat al-Asr from Ibn Umar, or is it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Some people say no. It's as if somebody asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about Salat al-Asr. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever misses a salat, then it's as if he's lost his family and his wealth. And because the questioner who asked the Prophet about that asked about Salat al-Asr, Ibn Umar said, Salat al-Asr. That's what some of them say. But there's a problem there because that requires a possibility. And with possibility, there's no proof. We could always say, well, maybe, well, maybe, well, maybe. But that doesn't answer any question. That doesn't prove anything.
So this would end up, if that's the case, this would be end up by meaning, right?
Right. It'd be that Ibn Umar added that statement, right? Because we see Nofel, he didn't have that statement in his narration. But we say that that possibility, we have to push it away. Even though some scholars adopt it, like Ibn Abdul Barr, he says that's probably what's more likely, is that the Prophet didn't add the word asr, and that this hadith is general for all salats, right? Because that makes sense, right? Whoever misses any salat, then it's as if he's lost his wealth and his family, right? What's so special about asr in this regard? And the hadith of Nofel supports that. But we have to say that no, the fact that Ibn Umar said, the Prophet ﷺ said,
Right.
we can't leave that because of possibility. And even though there are other narrations that explicitly state that the word asr is from Ibn Umar, they're not explicit to negate the hadith. They're just explicit in saying that that was also Ibn Umar's opinion. So when you find the narration that Ibn Umar says that's Salat al-Asr, is that him saying that it's not the hadith? No, he could still be saying it's the hadith and just telling you what he understood as well. Does that make sense? And so when you see these different hadith, that it could become problematic, right? Is that statement from Ibn Umar or is that from the Prophet? As far as we can tell, Ibn Umar said the Prophet said it. And then it helps us out as well that in one of the versions of Nofel, it says the same thing that I heard the Prophet say, Man fatatu salat al-asr. And so we feel a little bit more comfortable. But somebody might argue, no, that's just the narrator adding that in. You see what I'm saying? And all of this is the science of hadith, a statement that Abu Dawood says about hadith, that if you were to talk about the subtle weaknesses in hadith with the common people, it would cause them a problem in their religion. Because you have to look at all of these things when you put these narrations together. Is this the right wordage? Is this the right chain? Is this word part of the hadith or not? Now, does it make a big difference? If you say Salat al-Asr, can you compare other salat to it? Maybe, maybe not. And that's what the hadith is going to talk about. But for us, it would seem that it is Salat al-Asr. And our goal is to understand whose statements, whose opinion. Malik. Our goal is to understand how Malik understood it. How do you think Malik understood it? Why do you say Asr?
He didn't explain. There's no Qal Malik.
Well, if he didn't explain, then it could be either way. Why did you say Asr? I say he explained.
You're not here?
Yeah, I say Imam Malik explained.
Yeah, he's specific. Salat al-Asr.
But how do we know that Imam Malik's opinion is that it's specifically about Salat al-Asr? Yes, he said the word Asr, right? But how do we know that it's not comparing it, like it's only meant, like, if I say Muhammad's Salat was 27 times better than a person who prayed alone. Is that specifically Muhammad's Salat, or is that anybody's Salat who prayed in congregation? You see what I'm saying? Why did I mention Muhammad? Because I was talking about Muhammad. You see what I'm saying? So the question is, okay, he said Asr, but is it something specific about Asr, or was just Asr the Salat being talked about? Yeah, alladhi tafutuhu salat al-asr. Is it because it's something specific about Asr? Or is it because Asr was what I was talking about? You see what I'm saying? Muhammad's prayer is 27 times better than a person who prayed alone. Is it something specific about Muhammad? Or is it something, it's just because I was talking about Muhammad is the reason I mentioned Muhammad?
Specific about Asr.
It's well, that's the question. Why is it specific about Asr? We're trying to understand Malik. How do we know Malik thinks it's specific about Asr?
Because all of the hadith in this chapter are for Asr.
Not all of them, but the next hadith says what? That Umar,
Sort of.
why mention this hadith about Umar here?
Because it talks about Asr.
because it's explaining that this hadith is specific about Asr. So the scholars who say that this hadith is general for all salat, الذي تفوته صلاة العصر كأنما وتر أهله وماله. Those who are saying that this hadith is general about all salat, which is an opinion, and it makes sense. A person would say, but the apparent action of Malik is that what?
Asr.
It's specifically about Asr. How is that the apparent action of Malik? Imam Malik didn't give us a detailed description of what he was doing, but when we look at the next hadith he narrates, he's talking about Asr. You see what I'm saying? And so that makes us understand from him that it's specifically about Asr, right? طيب. الذي تفوته. What is the meaning? The one who Asr misses him. The one who Asr misses him, right? They like to talk about a benefit here. Can you say you missed the salat, or did the salat miss you? Some of them dislike saying, I miss salat, right? There's a chapter, there's a hadith about this, that they dislike saying, I miss salat, right? You should say, well, the salat missed me or something like that. But either way, inshallah, but they mention it, right? But what does it mean to miss the salat here in this hadith? الذي تفوته. The one who the salat missed him.
Maybe excuse.
How do you miss the salat?
Forget.
Okay. You say missing it is forgetting it. Okay. Is that the only thing?
You were negligent.
Huh?
You were not paying attention to it.
That's forgetting, heedlessness, negligence, forgetfulness. They can go together.
You were
Sahiyan.
busy.
All of that falls under the same category, right? Meaning heedlessness, negligence, sahiyan, right? We talked about that before. Those type of things go together.
Right.
But what does it mean to miss it? How did you miss it?
Overslept.
That goes with heedlessness, right? But what does it mean that you missed it?
The
You
time
didn't
went out.
perform it.
The time went out. Some of them say the meaning of the one who misses the salat, it is that the time left and he didn't pray. The time left and he didn't pray. That's one of the ways that some of them interpret this hadith. The time left and he didn't pray. الذي تفوته الصلاة. The time left, he didn't pray yet. What's another way that you could understand this? We're specifically talking about now. And if we understand it this way, it could apply, generally speaking, to all salat or specifically Asr. How do you know the time for Asr left?
The time.
How do you know the time for Asr left?
Time for Maghrib.
The time for Maghrib came in and you didn't pray a rak'ah. So the fawat of the salat would be not catching a rak'ah before Maghrib. So they would say that this hadith applies to the person who didn't pray a rak'ah before Maghrib. This hadith, according to that, would apply to the person who didn't pray a rak'ah before Maghrib. If you prayed a rak'ah before Maghrib, does this hadith apply to you? Okay. What's another understanding of this hadith? The one who missed the salat, the one who the salat misses him.
يعني قصدا وعمدا.
Okay, that's kind of going with the conversation that we talked about versus negligence or on purpose. We're going to talk about that. But we're talking about how have you been considered. Now, why did you miss it? What does it mean that you missed it?
Ajr.
That's what you missed. We're saying, what does it mean that you missed it? When did you miss it? How? Like, you see what I'm saying? We said you missed it because the time left. That's one understanding.
أول الوقت يعني.
وقت المختار. Oh, isfar al-shams. If you don't pray before the sun turns yellow. Some of them say that this hadith applies to the one who doesn't pray before the sun turns yellow. Before you enter into that time that they call waqt al-dhurura. So if you delayed salat until you got to waqt al-dhurura, this hadith applies to you. Changes the meaning.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You're still praying on time, but fatika salat, you missed it at its appropriate time, the chosen time, not the forced time. And so that would make you understand that not praying before the sun turns yellow is a what? What would it be?
It's like you missed it.
What would it be?
Lost the ajr.
Not just lost ajr,
Sinful?
sinful. You see what I'm saying? I threatened you with a punishment. Why would I threaten you with a punishment unless what you were doing was what? Sinful. And so the waqt of necessity after the sun turns yellow until Maghrib, that's if you had an excuse. But if you don't have an excuse and you delayed it until after the sun turns yellow, it's like you lost your wealth and your family. That changes the meaning. As far as the first people, they say, no, the missing of the salat is the missing of its entire time. What else could it mean?
Fourth meaning?
Third meaning. So far,
I thought it was third.
we'll call it the third meaning because I got it third on my paper.
Could it be kufr? Oh, never mind.
That's what you are, not what you miss. How do you miss it? You miss the time altogether. You miss the chosen time, the preferable time, the optional time. What else could we be talking about you've missed? The jama'ah. If you didn't pray it in jama'ah, فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. These are three possible meanings. الَّذِي تَفُوتُهُ الصَّلَاةِ. The one who misses the entire time, the one who misses the optional time, either the voluntary time, or the one who misses the jama'ah. These are three possible meanings. Which one is more accurate? The fourth possible meaning, before we go on to the three, we'll go into the fourth, which is what we said. The one who is sahi. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. As-sahi. The one who is negligent. Right? And so, but this sahi is more about the quality of the person than it is about how he missed. Right? So that's why I put it as fourth, and we'll talk about that in a second. But when we talk about the three things where you can say I can now say you missed it. What can I say you missed it? If you missed the whole time, if you missed the voluntary time, or if you missed the jama'ah. طيب. Which one is right? Support it. When you're trying to prove something, you need to do what? You need to pull from
The
other hadith to prove your point. Support it. Which one is right?
It's the jama'ah.
Jama'ah? Why you say jama'ah?
Because the other hadith say.
Okay, mashallah, you jumped ahead. You're saying Malik says it means jama'ah. How do we know Malik thinks it means jama'ah?
لم يشهد صلاة
لم
العصر.
يشهد صلاة العصر معنا in jama'ah. Because they had just prayed and he saw a guy at the steps of the masjid, or the tile in front of the masjid, that didn't pray. And he said, what stopped you from praying? Not what stopped you from praying altogether. He's obviously going into the masjid. What stopped you from being here with us? He said, his udhr. And he said, tafaft. Right? And so this kind of shows us that Malik understands it to be Salat al-Asr in Jama'ah. You see what I'm saying? Okay. What about the other people? What's their proof? Somebody who says that it means the Salat in its appropriate time, right, and before Maghrib, what could they use to support their opinion?
This is pretty apparent. Just that. I don't know.
Well, we can't use the thing that we're arguing about to prove a point. We're arguing about it. You see what I'm saying? So you got to bring me some proof from somewhere else that can support, no, this hadith is about not catching it at any of its time.
Yes, there's other hadith too. وَلَمَا فَاتَهُ مِنْ وَقْتِهَا أَعْظَمَ أَفْضَلَ.
No, we're going to see what that's talking about later.
There is other hadith.
Which one? That's what I'm asking you.
Salat al-Munafiq.
But that's not for this. That's for the next proof, the Salat al-Munafiq. Right? That's going to be for the people that say they missed it. So let's take that. There's a hadith that says the Salat of the Munafiq is that he waits till there's nothing but a little time left for Asr, and then he prays 2 raka'at very quickly, and he doesn't remember Allah during them.
4 or 2?
4, I'm sorry, 4. All right, let's get the actual word of the hadith. He says, ألا أخبركم بصلاة المنافقين يدعو العصر حتى إذا كان بين قرن الشيطان أو على قرن الشيطان قام فنقر كنقرات الديك لا يذكر الله فيهن إلا قليلا. That's the hadith of Anas in Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said, shall I not tell you about the salat of the hypocrite? He waits until the sun is between the two horns of the shaitan or on the horn of the shaitan. What is that? When is the sun between the horns of the shaitan? When it's setting. So this is أدرك ركعة من العصر قبل أن تغرب الشمس أو تغرب الشمس. So he waits until the sun is setting, that last time to pray, that rak'ah time. And then he stands and he bows a couple of bowings like a rooster. How a rooster pecks at the ground. وَلَا يَذْكُرُ اللَّهِ فِيهِنَّ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And he barely remembers a lot during them. So that hadith would prove that this hadith is talking about what? But which time?
Right before, like when it's at the end.
So we said the one who misses salat, what would this person who is using this hadith consider missing the salat to be? Not to the end of the Isra al-Shaf. Because if you delayed it to the very end, you would be doing this sin, the salat of the munafiqeen. So this person is under the opinion that no, praying outside of the voluntary time, the time when you're at freedom to choose, if you pray outside of that, this hadith applies to you. You see what I'm saying? Because he's saying this hadith is just like the hadith of the munafiq. Right? You understand what I'm saying? Everybody with me? And likewise, there's the hadith of, is it Abu Hurairah? No, hadith of Abdullah bin Amr bin al-As. He says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam waqata salat al-asr ma lam tasfarra ash-shams. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the time for salat al-asr as long as the sun didn't turn yellow. So that would mean this hadith, alladhi tafutuhu salat al-asr, is specifically about the one who waits until the sun turns yellow. Anything after the sun turns yellow, this hadith is applying to you. You see what I'm saying? That's one way to understand it. You have the people who understand it, that it's jama'ah, right? And we'll talk about that. We said that's most likely what Malik understood it to mean. But we said there was another understanding that it means whoever doesn't pray at all during its time. What's something that they could use to prove that? Yeah, I know this hadith. The hadith of Abu Hurairah. The hadith of Abu Hurairah said, whoever adraka rak'atan min al-asr qabla an taghrub ash-shams, faqad adraka al-asr. That means that this person adrak, idhan lam tafut. And so they would say that this hadith doesn't apply to that person. You see what I'm saying? Because it doesn't apply until you don't pray at all on time. Likewise, the hadith of Abu Qatada, when the Prophet overslept Fajr. And the Sahaba overslept Fajr. And how did they feel after they overslept Fajr? They felt like they did something wrong. And they started to criticize themselves. Look at what you did. You missed the salah. Look how negligent you were. And what the Prophet ﷺ, he said, this is in Muslim also, he said, أَمَّا إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي النَّوْمِ تَفْرِيطٌ إِنَّمَا التَّفْرِيطُ عَلَى مَنْ لَمْ يُصَلِّ الصَّلَاةِ حَتَّى يَجِيءَ وَقْتُ الصَّلَاةِ الْأُخْرَى فَمَنْ فعل ذلك فليصليها حين يتنبه لها فإذا كان الغد فليصليها عند وقتها. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, as far as you all go, then there is no negligence in sleep. Negligence is only when you don't pray a salat until the next time of a salat enters. So that's showing us that a person who prayed it before the next one came, he did his job. And so this hadith of Ibn Umar wouldn't be applicable to them. You see what I'm saying? The Prophet says, so if that ever happens, if one of you all ever do that, then let him pray it the moment he remembers, And if it was the next day, then he should pray it at the time of it during the next day. But the point is that you see that all of these people have a valid way of looking at the hadith. Some of them say that the hadith means alladhi tafutuhu, the one who doesn't pray any of it during its time. Some of them say, no, ya akhi, alladhi tafutuhu is the one who doesn't pray it during its optional time. This hadith would still be applicable to you. And some of them say, y'all both got it wrong. The one who misses the salah, the one who doesn't pray in jama'ah, even if you prayed it in the early time. But if you miss the jama'ah, فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. It's as if you missed all of your family and all of your wealth. Right? And they use as something to support their position. Right? Why specify Salat al-Asr?
Right. For Jama'ah.
Because Allah specified Salat al-Asr. حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى.
Oh, how you know that's?
Because Ibn Umar said, هي الوسطى. Right? And so that goes back to the conversation of did Ibn Umar add this in because of that. Ibn Battal says this is the only way to understand the ayat حافظوا على الصلوات. Because there's no other hadith that explains what to do on Salat al-Wusta. How do you guard Salat al-Wusta? Allah says, Hafidhu ala salawat. What does Allah mean, Hafidhu ala salawat? I.e. prayed in Jama'ah. Especially because this is a time when people are normally busy. Finishing their day, handling their affairs, right? Or exhausted, right? The last salat of the day. Asr is
Of the day, yeah. Last salah.
the last salat of, not the daytime, of the entire day. The last salat of any day you pray is Asr. Right? Because the day starts at Maghrib. And so this salat is extremely important. So hafidhu alayha, make sure that you get it in jama'ah, because if you don't get it in jama'ah, كَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالُهُ. It's as if your whole day, all of the ripping and running you were doing, all of the business you were trying to handle, all of the things that got you exhausted, it's as if you did what? You lost it all. Right? So hafidhu, that's what some of them say. Some of them say this salat was specified because of how the angels alternate during its time. Right? This is the salat where the angels of the day are alternating with the angels of the night. On the salat of the individual. The angels, yata'aqabun. They come down and they alternate shifts, if you will. Right? At Asr. But some of them say no, because they do that at Fajr too. Right? The angels also alternate at Fajr time. But they say Allah chooses what He wants. So Allah specified this hadith, because the hadith is wahi. Allah specified Salat al-Asr, and we don't know why Allah specified Salat al-Asr. Right? But the point is that any one of these three opinions could be the case. But our job is to understand whose view? Malik's. Right? And it would seem that Malik is bringing this hadith to support the position of what? Not praying in Jama'ah. Why? Because of the hadith of Malik and Yahya bin Sa'id on that أن عمر بن الخطاب وهذا منقطع, right? هذا مرسل. Yahya bin Sa'id لم يدرك عمر. Did he? I don't believe Yahya bin Sa'id reached Umar. I don't believe he reached Umar. I'm trying to remember. Yahya bin Sa'id, we said he died in the year 143. I don't believe he reached Umar. Because Yahya bin Sa'id, he died in the year 143, 144, كان من صغار التابعين. He was like the equivalent of a Zuhri. If you remember when we talked about Yahya bin Sa'id al-Ansari, we said he died in the year 143 or 144 after he had been made the judge in al-Hashimiyya by Abu Ja'far Mansur. And he was a person who narrated about 300 hadith. Abu Sa'id Yahya ibn Sa'id, a close friend of Rabi'ah ibn Abi Abdul Rahman, and from the four scholars of his time. Some of them used to even put him above az-Zuhri. And they used to say that the people of hadith in our time are Ibrahim ibn Abi Khalid and Asim al-Ahwal and Yahya bin Sa'id al-Ansari, and I'm forgetting the fourth. Sometimes they would say things like Ayyub, and like the point is that Yahya bin Sa'id al-Ansari was one of the major scholars of hadith, but he died 143. Umar, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, died what year?
23 or
23. Umar, he died 23. And so if Yahya died 143 and Umar died 123, between the deaths of them is how many years? 100. 120. 23 to 143.
It says Arba'in.
No, I'm saying between the death of Umar.
No, I'm saying like he said Yahya bin Sa'id 144.
144, like I said, 143, 144, they disagree. But 143, 144, and Umar died 23. How many years are in between their deaths? 120. Did Yahya bin Sa'id reach Umar? No, he would have had to have been 140 when he died, 150 when he died to have, or 130 at least, to have reached Umar. You see what I'm saying? To be able to get him and benefit from him. That's not the case. He died, I think they say he died when he was 80 years old or something like that. So he didn't reach Umar. And so if that's the case, then this narration of Yahya ibn Sa'id and Umar ibn al-Khattab is what they call mursal. Khafi. Not even mursal khafi, just mursal, right? Munqati'. In the later generations, they call it munqati'. The earlier generations would call it mursal. Because it's obvious. Is he doing tadlis? You guys remember tadlis, right? When you say a statement from your teacher or somebody that you lived during their time and making it seem like you heard it or you were there. Is Yahya ibn Sa'id doing tadlis?
He's not saying qala.
It doesn't. You don't have to say qala. You can say anna. You can say an. So why isn't this tadlis? Because it's known he didn't reach Umar. Anybody who reads a hadith, who knows anything about hadith, knows Yahya ibn Sa'id didn't reach Umar. And so they automatically know by default that this narration is disconnected. That being the case, is it a big issue? You say no, because Imam Malik would use as a proof what? Marasil. Imam Malik, this is a proof. Yahya ibn Sa'id was from the best of the tabi'een. And if he said it, that's good enough for me. And so Yahya ibn Sa'id, he said that أن عمر ibn al-Khattab انصرف بعد صلاة العصر. He left after praying Salat al-Asr, in the masjid with the jama'ah. انصرف بعد صلاة العصر فلقي رجلا عند خاتمة البلاط أو خاتمة البلاط بالفتح. Khatima at the end of al-balat. And al-balat are tiles. And they use this word to refer to a pathway that was used to be outside of the masjid. There was like a tiled path, a cobblestone path, if you will, outside of the masjid. So this door, Dar as-Salam and Masjid al-Nabawi, which is the door that you would enter from the western side of the masjid, I believe, but the door that brings you right into the road, right? That door, Dar as-Salam, outside of it, there used to be stone tiles that they would lay out, and that pathway was known as al-Balat. And it would lead to the marketplace outside of the masjid, and it would lead to the Musalla, where they would pray the Eid, which is now known as Masjid al-Ghamama, right? So they used to pray the Eid right outside the masjid, right? But this area of al-Balat is a pathway into the masjid. So Umar is leaving the masjid, فَلَقِيَ رَجُلًا عِنْدَ الْبَلَاط, in the khatimat al-Balat, at the end of al-Balat. He's on one end of the path, heading into the masjid, and Umar's coming out of the masjid, and he sees this guy. فقال عمر ما حبسك عن صلاة العصر. ها؟ أو لم يشهد صلاة العصر. نعم. فلقي رجلا عند خاتمة البلاط لم يشهد صلاة العصر. Here we already understood that لم يشهد صلاة العصر, i.e. with the jama'ah. When did Umar used to pray صلاة العصر? Early. You see what I'm saying? At the earliest time of it. How do we know? وصل العصر وصل العصر والشمس بادية والشمس بيضاء نقية قبل أن يدخلها الصفرة. Right? قبل أن يدخلها الصفرة. So now the other people, the second opinion still has something to hold on to here. You see what I'm saying? Because it's all going back to before Sufra. But he's seeing this guy's going into the masjid, it would seem. فقال عمر ما حبسك عن صلاة العصر. What kept you back from Salat al-Asr? And he's not saying, why didn't you pray Salat al-Asr? Because the man might have prayed, or he might be going to pray. So when he said, ما حبسك عن صلاة العصر, what is he talking about? Jama'ah. Which leads us to another point. And we're jumping between the hadith because they all work together. So don't forget, we're still in the first hadith, but we're jumping in between.
So you missed it.
Huh? He missed it. طففت. فقال له عمر بن الخطاب طففت. You've reduced, you've lessened. What did you lessen? We'll find out that from the meanings of the word wutira, nuqisa. Right? But, so, this man who missed the salah, he said, ما حبسك عن صلاة فذكر له عذرا. So he mentioned an excuse. Here we have an issue. The one who misses Salat al-Asr, regardless of what we say missing it is there a difference between the one who misses it on purpose or not? As it relates to the previous hadith, كَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. Is there a difference between the one who misses it on purpose or not? Regardless of what you say the meaning of missing it is, the one who missed it, is there a difference between if he missed it on purpose or not? And it would seem that Imam Malik says that the answer is, it doesn't matter. It does not matter whether you missed it on purpose or not. Because ذكر عذرا, he mentioned his excuse. But Umar said to him, in spite of that, طففت. Let's go back to the previous hadith. He says that الذي تفوته صلاة العصر. We understand تفوته صلاة العصر. Right? كأنما وتر. كأنما وتر. فكأنما وتر. It's as if he has wutir. Wutir, as you all can hear, it's a verb where the doer of it isn't mentioned. Right? So there's a na'ib fa'il, right? What they call classically, ma lam yusam fa'iluhu. And what they call commonly, al-mabni lil-majhul. Right? It's as if, so what is the meaning of the word watara? Because if you say it normally, it would be watara. What is the meaning of that word? Some of them say watara means, the origin of this meaning, a tara, is somebody comes and kills your family or takes your money while you're looking. That's hard. Somebody comes and kills your family or takes your money while you're sitting. They do it in front of you. Right? فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. And what normally happens when that happens? Because all of this is part of the word. All of this is included in the meaning of the word watara. No, before that. Okay, we can say that. Somebody killed your family, took your money in front of you. Like, pay attention to these additional words. They did it in front of you. Your family and your money is now reduced. You lost it. What happens next? Like, the Prophet didn't say wutira, he said ka'annama, right? He's setting an example for you. Agony. The agony of what? Losing your family and your money. Is that the only agony you have? What happens next? You saw me walk in front of you and kill your wife. Revenge. So you start trying to do what? Pay him back. But no matter what you do,
Can't bring it back.
will not bring your family back. Now listen to that with the understanding of the hadith. Why are we talking about Salat al-Asr? Because it's al-Wusta. It's the one that is the hardest one sometimes. You're busy with your family. You're busy with your dunya. You're exhausted from your day. And then you missed it. What happened? It was right there in front of you. You saw it. And what did they do? وَتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. They took your family and your wealth from right in front of your eyes. That last salat of the day, if you don't catch it, it's as if you wasted the entirety of your day. The same way that the person would have lost his family. And if you've lost your family, is there anything that you can do to bring him back? And is there anything that you can do to get this ajr back from what you lost from your day? So like this is the gravity of missing Salat al-Asr. Whether it's at its time or before it turns yellow or in the Jama'ah, whatever you say, this is the gravity of this hadith. فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. It's as if you've had your family snatched from in front of you, taken from right in front of your eyes, and there's nothing you can do to bring it back.
Can we say somebody who's careless about the salah is like somebody who's careless about it?
Well, that was the question that we originally asked. Does it make a difference if you did it on purpose or with an excuse? And if that excuse is valid or invalid. You see what I'm saying? So, before we get into that, let's finish the conversation of wutira. That's the meaning of the word watara, right? To have your family and your wealth taken away. And it can also mean to what? To be alone. To be alone. Like witr. Which one of the versions of the hadith support because it says, وَهُوَ قَائِدٌ. And so after your family and your wealth are taken away from you, what do you have left?
Yourself.
Nothing. And you just sit alone. And like this is the condition of and like these, the significance of these statements, وَيَعْذُ بِاللَّهِ, from his punishment on the day of judgment, like they're representative of like the condition that you'll find yourself on the day of judgment. The one who abandons the salat and how he'll be ostracized and alone, and it's his own family, his own money. Will it help him at all from Allah on that day? Will they want to step in and intercede on his behalf on that day? No. فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. Like in a mu'min, يُشَفَّعْ فِيهِ. He'll have the intercession given for him from his family, right? The things that he did with his money, he'll have that intercession. But the one who misses Asr, if you gave charity that day, the charity that you gave that day, any good? If you miss Salat al-Asr, that day you gave charity. فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ. Is that charity any good anymore?
It said malahu too.
That's what I'm saying. So you've lost the reward of that. You see what I'm saying? And for that reason, some people say that this hadith is equivalent of kufr. Some of them say that this hadith is representative of kufr for the person who becomes a kafir by delaying asr outside of its time. So to understand kufr, you have to understand the meaning of delaying asr out of its time. Because if you delay asr out of its time, what are you? Tariq as-salat. You've abandoned the salat. And abandoning the salat makes you a?
Kafir.
And if you're a kafir, your actions become what?
Habita.
Habita. And that's why in another hadith, in Bukhari and Muslim and other places, the hadith of, this is the hadith of Burayda. I think I said earlier the other one was the hadith of Burayda. This is the hadith of Burayda. He said that
من ترك صلاة العصر.
من ترك صلاة العصر حبط عمله كله. Whoever abandons Salat al-Asr, all of his actions are useless. All of his actions are useless. So that's one way to understand. وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ, i.e. he has committed kufr by abandoning Asr outside of its appointed time, and thus all of his actions become useless. And so like this, he loses his family and his wealth. None of it will be of any avail to him on the day of judgment. Some of them say no. وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالَهُ, he's losing the reward that he would get from his family and his children. Just like he's losing the reward that he would get if he would have prayed Salat al-Asr on time. Or if he would have prayed Salat al-Asr with the Jama'ah. And so they don't have to understand this hadith to mean kufr. They're just understanding that you're missing out on the reward of something. Whether it's the reward of your actions and your family and your entire day, or just the reward of that salah. But in this scenario, it doesn't make a difference if the person had an excuse or not, because you've missed that reward. As far as it relates to this scenario of saying that the individual becomes a kafir or all of his actions are lost or something like that, then yes, it makes a difference. But in the scenario of the person who is missing the reward and had it snatched from in front of his eyes, does it make a difference if you forgot or not? No. Because you can't do anything to get that reward back because you didn't pray it on time. Even if you pray before the time leaves, when you didn't pray in the optional time, you've missed that reward. When you woke up and the sun had already turned yellow, salli. But you missed the good time, فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالُهُ. You didn't pray with jama'ah, salli. But you missed praying with the jama'ah, فَكَأَنَّمَا وُتِرَ أَهْلَهُ وَمَالُهُ. And so like this, it doesn't make a difference if you have an excuse or not. You still reduced and lessened your benefit, right? And we see that this is probably the meaning that Imam Malik is going to, because what does Imam Malik say after that? قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك عن يحيى بن سعيد إن المصلي ليصلي الصلاة. Indeed, a person will pray a salah وَلَمَا فَاتَهُ مِنْ وَقْتِهَا أَعْظَمُ. وَلَمَا فَاتَهُ مِنْ وَقْتِهَا شكرا. وَلَمَا فَاتَتْهُ مِنْ وَقْتِهَا أَعْظَمُ أو أفضل. Okay. And Yahya bin Sa'id قال إن الرجل ليصلي صلاة إن المصلي ليصلي الصلاة وما فاتته، يعني ما فاتته الصلاة ولما فاته من وقتها أعظم أو أفضل من أهله وماله. This shows us that Malik is saying that most likely a person can pray on time. A person can pray on time. And because he prayed in that later period of the time, not with the jama'ah, he still prayed on time. وَمَا فَتَتُ. The salat didn't miss him. But وَلَمَا فَاتُ. But for sure, what he missed from its time, i.e. its optional time, is greater or better than all of his family and his wealth. And so this shows us that even the one who was asleep, even the one who was forgetful, even the one who was busy, who had an excuse, it still applies to him. And it's even worse for the one who what?
Deliberately.
Does it on purpose, deliberately. He has that double grief. Right? This individual, he has, and that's what the word wutira means, it's that double grief. You got the grief that you missed out on it. And then you got the grief of knowing that there's nothing that you can do to get it back. And so these are some of the meanings from this hadith. الذي تفوته صلاة العصر كأنما وتر أهله وماله. Ibn Abdul Barr, he mentions in this hadith, he says that this hadith shows us that a little bit of righteousness is better than everything in the dunya. Salat al-Asr ma'al jama'ah. Salat al-Asr fi awwali waqtihi is better than all of your family and all of your wealth. The hadith of, who was it, Aisha? Rak'at al-Fajr khayrun min ad-dunya wa ma fiha. The 2 rak'ah before Fajr are better than the dunya and everything in it. Right? A little bit of righteousness is better than the dunya. And if this is the case of a little bit of righteousness, then why are we tricked so much? Why are we tricked so much? I'm talking to myself now. Like a little bit of righteousness. How can you miss it when it's better than the dunya and everything is in it?
Good question.
Focus.
Like if we are, let's say the case, we don't hear the adhan, and that's our excuse, should we still push ourselves to go to the masjid, even though we don't hear the adhan and we're far away, like just to get this reward, like, you know?
الذي تفوته صلاة العصر فكأنما وتر ماله أهله وماله. How do you take it?
That's how I take it.
If you take it, then take it. You see what I'm saying?
Is that how you take it too?
Don't worry about how I take it. You guys do a lot about how you take it.
yeah, right.
You see what I'm saying? Like, don't let my laziness or my excuse or my opinion change what you believe. If you take it that I need to be praying in Jama'at, first things first, move closer to a masjid. You see what I'm saying? Now, me personally, كل شيء يقدر بقدره. Everything is appointed by its proportions. If I live 50 miles away from a masjid, am I going to say, well, كأنما وتر أهله وماله, and put that mashaqqa on myself? Because when the Salaf started an action, they didn't like to leave it.
Yeah, that too.
You see what I'm saying? So once you say to yourself, I'm going to do this, is that something that you can do? Because the best of actions are the most consistent, even if they're small. But alhamdulillah, طيب, you don't have a masjid that you can make it to consistently. Can you pray in Jama'at consistently?
With your family.
Not all the salawat.
Can you pray this salat consistently in Jama'at? Do you have a male?
Like pick Fajr or something.
Yeah, you have a male or somebody that you can pray this salat with consistently. When you're at work, is there a co-worker that you can pray with consistently?
Right.
Jama'ah.
Because we said the meaning of it here means Jama'ah. Can you pray in the early time consistently?
Jama'ah with masjid.
Huh?
Jama'ah masjid.
No, we didn't say. We said that Umar, you could take it from that, but we said the people who mentioned the opinion, they mentioned pray it at all on time, pray it in its voluntary time, or pray it in Jama'ah.
Meaning masjid.
No, meaning Jama'ah. There's a difference between Jama'ah and a masjid.
Jama'ah fil masjid.
There's a difference between, you can add that if you want, but there's a difference between Jama'ah and masjid.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
What was the musalla where Umar ibn al-Khattab prayed?
Masjid al-Nabawi.
Masjid al-Nabawi.
Right? But the point of it is that the opinions that we mentioned were praying it at all on time, praying it in its voluntary time or its optional time, or praying it in Jama'ah.
So Jama'ah right here is just.
You can add Jama'ah in the masjid if you want, if that's what you think it means.
That's what I thought.
Right? That's what you thought. Right? You see what I'm saying? It's about how you comprehend it.
Right.
What was Imam Malik's opinion about praying in the masjid? Did he believe it was wajib?
I'm assuming he did.
Why?
Because he can hear the adhan, probably.
That doesn't mean anything. You're putting your background understanding
On his.
on Imam Malik's opinion. We haven't got to Imam
Yeah, we
Malik's
didn't-
opinion
we
about
didn't-
praying in the
we
masjid
didn't
yet.
get that part, right?
So why'd you add it?
I was assuming.
What did we talk about so far? Time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And the missing of it here, we say, well, we had to add one, which is Jama'ah. Before we can add masjid, we need to see what Imam Malik believed. Now, was Umar ibn Khattab in the masjid? Absolutely. And the man was going to the masjid, but the man was going to the masjid.
But he.
So is it the masjid or Jama'ah? You see my point?
I was thinking masjid
Jama'ah.
as well.
All right. And so the point is, do I have somebody I can pray with at home and I can't get to the masjid? I can pray with them constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Do I have somebody that, can I pray the salah in the early time constantly?
Or you can pick one salah that you can go to in the masjid. And then, but which one do you pick?
Whichever one you can pick. But if you can get Asr,
So you're saying Asr over Fajr?
huh?
You say Asr over Fajr?
Maybe it's hard to make it for Fajr. Fajr is 20 minutes and you got to get up and you have to be up and you took a nap and you see what I'm saying? But Asr, I'm already up, I'm already out, I'm already about. The point of it is, when you guys are talking about this issue, you're talking about a completely different topic. It is do what you can do.
Right, right.
Al-umur tuqaddar biqadriha. I can do this, so I'm going to do this. I can't come to Grand Masjid every day, but I can come every weekend. I'm going to come every weekend. You see what I'm saying? I have to have for myself a portion of worship of Allah that is consistent. And when I find it, I continue with it. And you'll find, wallahi, I'll tell you this, and we're off topic, but I'll tell you this. You'll find that when you find that portion of worship that's consistent, nothing else in the dunya matters. The things that used to distract you in the dunya become less important, which then opens your time up to do what? More worship. You were busy. This thing used to keep you preoccupied, right? You like watching the football game. You like watching the soccer game. You like doing this or that and the third from the things that, whether mubah or makruh or maybe even haram, were distracting you from the worship of Allah. But you kept something dedicated, consistent, adwam, for Allah. You'll find that that video game that you were playing is less enjoyable. You don't sit in front of the TV for 4 hours anymore. You see what I'm saying? And the only thing that your day revolves around is, oh, I got to do this act of worship that I got scheduled. And you'll find your day starting to be just about that act of worship. And since your day is just about that act of worship, the other things become less important. And so you don't mind missing them as much because you have a scheduled act of worship. Instead of those things taking up so much of your time, you don't mind missing it. Oh, I didn't watch the show. Okay, whatever. It's just a TV show. But I got this act of worship I got to get caught up on. And then you'll find yourself finding out that, man, I got more time than I had. What should I do with this extra time I got? Now, let me throw another act of worship in here that I can be consistent on. I got an extra 30 minutes that I didn't used to have. Somewhere in my time, I found the extra 30 minutes. My days used to be busy. I didn't have no time. And now I got an extra 30 minutes. I'm gonna review a juz. And then that becomes one more thing I throw onto my plate that's consistent. And now that I got 2 acts of worship that I'm focusing on, man, I have even less time to go play ball with the brothers after salat. So I got to go home. I got to get to record. I got to go do this. I got to do that. Okay. And like this, you find that Allah puts the barakah in your time because you're using it. But talking about this hadith, it's about how you understand it. Even if I can't get to the masjid for all of the salat, can I pray salat al-asr early at every time? That's something I can do regardless. Wherever I'm at, I can always pray salat al-asr early. And just because we said that this hadith, Imam Malik didn't take it to mean per se, not praying in the later time, some people did. And it doesn't change the hadith that the salat of the munafiqeen is what?
Later time.
The later time. You see what I'm saying? So just because we say, well, maybe this hadith is talking more about jama'ah, it doesn't mean that, man, you know what, I'm going to use it. And, maybe this hadith also applies to praying early on, so I'm going to pray early on. At least I'm going to keep my family and my wealth safe that way. And, like, it's not just the metaphorical, abstract meaning of it. You'll find the barakah in what when you do it? What will you find? Where will you find the barakah?
What?
In your family and in your wealth. Like it doesn't just mean that like you'll lose it as if, okay, on a day of judgment you won't have the reward, but you also, when you sin, you see the result of your sins in your inni la'asi rabbi, and I find the effects of my sins in my family and in my riding animal. But if I'm praying asr, I'll find the effects of that in my family and in my riding animal. When you arguing with your wife and you can't understand, why do we argue about this BS so much? It don't even matter. But then you notice that I didn't pray asr until 4:46 and Maghrib comes in at 5:15. You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's why I'm arguing all the time. It's like I lost my family and my wealth. Why is my money not covering the bills? Why am I I got a job. I get paid. Why am I still struggling? But you're not praying until 5:10. It's as if it had no benefit. So anyway, these 3 hadith are the hadith that we covered today. And obviously, these hadith you can go a lot more in, but the main thing is that you understand the meanings of the words and what Imam Malik was trying to get across. The first hadith, yalla.
This one?
Yeah, the first one.
قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك
I know he's on the spot. حدثنا مالك عن نافع.
عن نافع.
First one.
يا ده نافع. عن نافع عن عبد الله بن عمر أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال الذي تفوته صلاة العصر كأنما وتر أهله وماله.
Everybody understand that? You understand not all, but some of the details of it. Tafutuhu. Salat al-Asr, wutira. Right? Those are the main ingredients of that. الذي بعده.
قال ابو مسعود قال حدثنا مالك عن يحيى بن سعيد أن عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه انصرف من صلاة العصر وانصرف بعد صلاة العصر
انصرف من صلاة العصر.
انصرف من صلاة العصر فلقي رجلا عند خاتمة البلاط
بلاط بالفتح.
عند خاتمة البلاط
آسف. ماله وماله. You could say it both ways. فكأنما وتر أهله وأهله. You could say it both ways, but the more common way and the more famous way is أهله وماله. It changes the actual meaning slightly, but not the overall meaning, right? But the more common way is فكأنما وتر أهله وماله.
If we say ahluhu, that means maluhu, then those aspects.
So the difference will become the first way فكأنما وتر أهله فكأنما سلب أهله. Like I would say سلبه أهله. He took your family from you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So he took from you your family.
Right.
And so your family was taken from you when I get rid of he. Or if I say فكأنما وتر أهله, you lost your family. Your family was lost. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So his family was taken away from him versus you lost your family. It doesn't change the overall meaning,
Right.
but it changes some of the subtle details of it, right? In the خاتمة البلاط.
لم يشد صلاة العصر فقال ما حسبك
عمر.
فقال
فقال عمر. It's not عمر.
Just faqal.
فقال
فقال ما حسبك عن صلاة العصر
حبسك.
ما حبسك عن صلاة العصر فذكر له عذرا فذكر له عذرا فقال عمر بن الخطاب
فقال
عمر بن الخطاب
وهمنا له.
Why are you putting for you?
Huh?
You were supposed to say it.
Oh, I was about to say it, but you said yeah, Umar ibn
like,
Khattab.
say it, like, yeah.
فقال له
أيوة.
عمر بن الخطاب طفف
أيوة.
وقال مالك
قال مالك.
قال مالك وقد يقال
لكل
شيء وفاء أو
و.
لكل شيء وفاء والتطفيف.
نعم. طففت. تعلمون هذه الكلمة. ويل للمطففين. التطفيف is to reduce the amount of something from what it should be. So when Umar saw this individual not praying with them in Jama'ah, he said, طففت. Your asr is less valuable. You didn't give asr all of the measurements it was due. You didn't fill the scale with asr. فكأنما وتر أهله وماله. نقص أهله. Right? He reduced it. And that's why Malik rahimahullah, he says لكل شيء قال مالك قد يقال لكل شيء وفاء. For everything there is doing it completely, giving it its all, وتطفيف, and being deficient in it, not giving it its all. And you can say that about everything. And from the things you can say that about is الصلاة. الذي بعده.
قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك أنه سمع يحيى بن سعيد.
I forgot that earlier. أنه سمع يحيى بن سعيد.
إن المصلي ليصلي الصلاة وما فاتته ولما فاته من وقتها أعظم أو أفضل
نعم.
من أهله أو ماله.
من أهله أو ماله أو وماله. Because all of them are what? أهله وماله. نعم. That hadith, we did it. We said, do you understand? أن قال مالك أن قال أبو مصعب حدثنا مالك أنه سمع يحيى بن سعيد. And we talked about him. إن المصلي ليصلي الصلاة وما فاتته. Indeed, a person who offers salat and the salat hasn't missed him. ما فاتته الصلاة. The salat hasn't missed him. He prayed on time. He did what he was supposed to do. But ولا ما فاته. But what did miss him from the time was greater or better than his family, and his wealth, right? And so, right, that hadith, you understand some of the ways to use that hadith and how it applies to what Malik seems to be presenting, even though somebody might use that version and say that shows us that it's about praying in its early time, not just in Jama'ah, right? And so all of these things kind of coexist together. After that, it's the statement of Imam Malik. He's going to talk about traveling and some of the ways that you can miss the salat and what to do if you miss the salat in those circumstances. Well, we talk about al-qada, making up what you missed. And so all of this is part of Jami al-Waqt. We'll continue with that next time. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Any questions about any of that? تفضل.
Khatima?
Khatamat
What's khatima?
the khatim, or the seal, the end, the last of al-Balat.
Like the end of it?
Yeah, he met him at the end of Balat,
okay.
right?
Oh yeah, okay. Khatim, yeah. And if you had a choice between praying like Dhuhr in the masjid and Asr, and you can only do one, you should choose Asr, right?
الذي تفوته صلاة العصر.
So choose Asr.
الذي تفوته
Like,
صلاة
if you had to
العصر.
choose one, I'm saying.
You had to choose one of those two.
Because that's what I got from all this.
You had to choose one of those
Yeah,
two.
you had to only choose one.
Of those two.
Yes.
I would go with Asr.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
hadith
That-
mentions
yeah,
Asr.
that's what I was
حافظوا على صلواتكم حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى. Right? Why Asr? حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى. It's Asr. I would choose Asr if I could only do one of the two in the masjid.
Right, right.
And I know, you know what, Dhuhr's at 12. I can't go there, get back, come back for Asr. So I can either do my job over here and finish before Asr and get there, or I can go pray Dhuhr and do my job after Asr. Maybe I'll do my job at Dhuhr and come to the masjid for
Right,
Asr.
right, right.
You see what I'm saying? If I understood this hadith to mean al-jama'ah. You see what I'm saying?
All right.
So next time we're doing the statement of Imam Malik.
We're going to finish the chapter. Yeah, we're going to finish the chapter, inshallah, next time, inshallah.
So we got to memorize all?
Yeah,
All of it?
yeah.
Dang, he goes
But this is
fast.
where memorizing it all is hard because it's a lot of talk.
But you learn
And you find the barakah in a hadith versus the talk of people, even somebody like Imam Malik. How many words you done memorized already? Right? How many hadith we had?
24.
Right? How many words in that? Right? But now when it's just time to just Imam Malik, it's like, it's a difference in the barakah. Right? Memorizing hadith, memorizing athar is different than memorizing the statement of an imam. That being said, one, vocabulary will make it easier to memorize, and two, we're not as stringent about, as we'll see. Neither were they. Right? They weren't as stringent about what Imam Malik. You got the idea. Right? For example, Khatimat al-Balat is not with Yahya. Khatimat al-Balat is not in the riwayah of Yahya. Right?
We forgot to mention something.
What? Allah.
من الرجل الذي لم يشهد الصلاة.
And Mubham, I don't know.
It says
Find it, yellow. It does? Yellow. Afidna. Uthman?
They say, but it's not. This
Because I would say Uthman because it was Jum'ah. It happened with Uthman before.
let me see. No, that's the second one, right? Second
No.
hadith, yeah.
Who is this? Abdul Kareem?
Yeah, Qudayr. Here, بعضهم أن okay, ذكر بعضهم أن الرجل المذكور هو عثمان ابن عفان وليس بصحيح وإنما التبس نعم
وإنما التبس عنهم
عليه هذا الأثر
بالذي في الجمعة.
آخر
نعم.
حين دخل عثمان المسجد عمر يخطب
نعم.
الجمعة فقال ما بال
رجال
يتأخرون بعد النداء
نعم.
إلى آخره.
نعم.
والصواب أنه رجل من الأنصار من بني حديدة وحديدة
Bani Hudaydah, I would say.
كما ذكر ذلك ابن عبد البر وغيره.
No. Yeah, I can see that. I can see the mistake because, like you said, that the hadith of what's wrong with some people coming to Jum'ah after the Nida was called. He said, "Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I had to make a wudu." He said, and it was just a wudu. You didn't make a ghusl too. You just made a wudu and you late. But that was Uthman. But this one it said min Bani Hadida or Hudaydah. Let's see how to pronounce it.
But still doesn't say.
Who? Yeah. And like we talked about before, like that's from the husn ma'amalat sahaba. Why would you mention that guy and have people talking about him forever? You see what I'm saying? That's obviously a point of criticism. Let's conceal who he was, right? Have the sahabi. Right? Let's conceal who he was that did this thing. We can learn from it without learning who he is. And so that's one of the wisdoms that they would talk about, why the Salaf would sometimes conceal an identity of a person. What were the other reasons we said the Salaf would conceal an identity of a person? Right? Because they didn't want to show off because it was probably them. Or they didn't want to blow up the person by making him feel too much, by mentioning him, by showing off. What's another reason they wouldn't mention the person?
Because they didn't.
They have some mistakes, so I could.
Like this, that was this one. That was this one. Like there was something they wanted to conceal him.
Maybe they didn't want to. Did they know? Maybe they didn't want to narrate something wrong.
Because
The people don't like that.
what? So yeah, those are two different things. We're talking. So what you're talking about is when we talked about why a scholar would conceal a person, right? And not that. So they would narrate them to get the information across to a group of people who didn't like that person, or they would conceal the identity of a person to not let the people know about him, but the information was good. But that's what we're talking about, like in narration. We're talking about like the Sahaba. Sometimes they would say one of the Sahaba did. Why not tell us who it was? Sometimes they wouldn't tell us who it was to conceal the identity of the one who did it because of the criticism that might be attached to them.
Oh, like Ikram.
Huh? No, like the story of Muhajir, the one who made hijrah for the woman. There was a man amongst us who made hijrah to marry a woman. Why not tell us who he is? Because if it's connecting a bad trait to him. We don't want you to think bad about this guy. Like the Prophet used to say, don't tell me bad about each other. I want to meet you all with a clean heart. Right? You shouldn't go around and tell me, you know, Abu, man. Right now, don't talk bad to me about it. I want to meet you all and be happy to receive you. And so you conceal the individual's identity so you don't have anything against him. That's one reason. Another reason is to prevent showing off. They're the ones who they're concealing. But if they put their name in it, it's as if they're bigging themselves or somebody else up. The Prophet used to kiss some of his wives. Or said, I know it's you. And she smiled because it was her, right? But she would conceal it so that she wouldn't try to make it seem like she's bigging herself up. What's another reason they would conceal? It's the obvious one. What's another reason they would conceal somebody? We were commanded. Who commanded them?
It's like it's ma'lum.
It's Ma'lum. Everybody know who it was. You see what I'm saying? Well, we can conceal it because we don't got to give. You want me to spell everything out for you? You know who did it, right? One day while we were praying in the masjid, the imam said, Allahu Akbar. Tell me who the imam is. It's the messenger of Allah. You see what I'm saying? Hadida. Hadida. Not Hudayda, Hadida. طيب. There was something. I think that was it. That's it. Yalla, khalas, inshallah.
And also they mention like witr is also, because Allah is witr. Allah will witr.
For sure.
So they use this meaning also, like witr to reduce, to make something less.
Oh, yeah. So like the name of Allah, witr, in English they translate it as odd.
Yes, odd. Yeah.
Right? But in English that has a bad connotation. But what does it mean to be odd?
Separate.
Huh?
Separate.
Separate. Distinguished. By yourself.
Right.
Allah's witr.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And so from things that are deficiencies to us could be completions with Allah.
Right.
If a person doesn't sleep, that person with us is what? He's deficient. You don't sleep? What's wrong with you? You got sickness? You sick? You got insomnia? But Allah, when He doesn't sleep, that's a perfection.
Perfection.
And so when we talk about the names and the qualities of Allah, there's a difference between absolute perfect and perfect respectively. Allah has absolute perfection. That's why his names are Husna and his sifat are Uliya. There is no deficiency in them whatsoever. While us, we can have qualities that are deficient from one aspect, but superior from another.
Oh, you gotta go?
He's already gone.
Oh,
Are you blocking him?
Yeah.
Yalla.
I'm coming out. Salam alaikum.